Hi, Ahmad.
Hi.
Welcome in our studio again. I'm very glad to see you. Thank you for coming to the event that these days Restart Initiative and Heritage School organized in Berlin. And thank you for coming to our studio.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It was a great pleasure, being in the event with you and also being here with you in the studio.
So I wanted to use this opportunity to talk with you about the current situation, about what's happening between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and where you see the developments going, political developments in this negotiation process. Let me specifically ask you about the question of Karabakh Armenians. We know that 10,000 of Armenians have left Karabakh, and the guarantees that President of Azerbaijan and that Azerbaijan as a state was expressing wasn't sufficient for Armenians, for Karabakh Armenians. They didn't trust Azerbaijani government or state. I always heard that Azerbaijan government did not, specifically communicate to Karabakh Armenians what exactly rights they will have or not. But yesterday I was listening to the interview of President Aliyev, and he actually said that this was communicated to the leadership of Karabakh Armenians some time ago, but it was not public. And only later they learned that they did not communicate it to their own people. And only later Azerbaijan made it public. And so for me, why do you think, where is the problem? Do you think that, and how can it be fixed? Why Karabakh Armenians left Azerbaijan, and what can be done so they can return?
Thank you very much for the question. Right now we are in this time period when the after the 19th and 20th September 2023 events, it's normal that parties they're hesitating to get in touch with each other. But it was a great joy to see that last week there was a meeting between Shahi Mustafayev and Miguel Gregorian, but also 2 days ago there was a joint statement by Armenia and Azerbaijan. So it means that whatever the phase we were a couple of days ago, we have entered a new phase right now. It's quite hard to say that where we're going to lead from this point. But for sure, the rights of the Karabakh Armenians, their return, it's going to be discussed in this platform. And I believe that President Aliyev and his presidential team members, they made in the past, they made it clear that they see all the rights within the Azerbaijan jurisdiction. And it means that they can come there and live as Azerbaijan citizens, and they can, let's say, all the rights about the ethnic minorities and religious minorities can be applied to them also. And in this context, I expect that it is going to be very important that Azerbaijan and Armenia, they are going to do this process without the influence of the other powers. So whoever is in the part of the process, they are going to come with their own agenda. So as a result, I believe that for the last 2 years, these changing platforms, running from one platform to another platform, that help the process at one moment. When in one platform, if there is some stagnation, you would move to the other platform. But overall, it would mean that the rights and the interests of the certain groups, certain geopolitical groups, it will be reflected on the process also. But now that Armenia and Azerbaijan, they are having their own bilateral process, so it means that Karabakh Armenians, they are going to enjoy these rights without any interference from anyone else.
Yes, and I want to also to ask you about the rights of Azerbaijanis who were forced to leave Armenia in 80s, but even before, there was, that in 40s, I mean, during Stalin times, there were these big waves of movement of Azerbaijanis outside of Armenia. And then in 80s, there was another big wave. So when Azerbaijan brings up this in international platforms, there is always certain, negative reaction, not just of Armenian colleagues, but also of, experts from Europe and US, that these are two different issues. Do you think these are two different issues, or do you think that if we talk about normalization and reconciliation, so basically every Armenian has a right to return to Azerbaijan, not even Karabakh, maybe even to Baku, maybe even to Sumgait, to any part of Azerbaijan where they live, and also every Azerbaijani who lived in Armenia has the right to return back and the right to get its property back. Like what is your opinion and what is your view on these issues?
Yeah, it's a very important issue. I believe that we should not limit the whole thing to the 2020, the Karabakh War. So if you, when the conflict started, if you say that the conflict started in 2020, it means that you want to talk about the rights and security of the Karabakh Armenians, and that's it. If you say that the conflict started in 1988, of course, it means that Karabakh Armenians and Azerbaijan's rights, they're going to be discussed in this context because there are certain moments that they should be talked. But if you take the conflict even further, and I believe that many international partners, they are willing to do that. In that sense, you have to take into account all range of the people that they were, to one way or another, they were affected by this conflict, and there are one of the largest groups that had an adverse effect of the conflict or themselves is Azerbaijanis from modern Armenia, the Western Azerbaijanis, and in this context, you are absolutely right that many people in academic circles, in decision-making circles, in international the project management, the donor circles, there is a quite limited awareness about the 1948-1951 events when the large number of the Azerbaijanis, they were forced out from the Soviet Armenia to Soviet Azerbaijan, just to create a certain room for the Armenians that they were repatriating from abroad to the Soviet Armenia. And as a result, you have a large group of the people for whom the conflict is not over. So the Karabakh, Armenian-Azerbaijan conflict, they might take place in various geographical places. So the Karabakh we can consider over, but what about the others? So that is why in this context, I believe that we have to take into account all the social groups, all of the social groups that suffered from this conflict for the last 50, 60, 100 years. And in this context, ignoring the rights of the Armenian Azerbaijanis, saying that this happened in the past, we should not address this issue, I believe that this would be a great mistake, because we understand that there is a peace and there is a positive peace, and as a part of the positive peace, you need to address all the concerns in order to make sure that there is no one left in the society, no social groups were ignored. So that is why I believe that in this context, the rights and security of the Armenian Azerbaijanis are also important, and they also should be part of the overall peace process. And in this context, a positive peace concept is very, very much important.
I think also needs to be discussed this entire issue of property rights, because if we talk about normalization and then reconciliation, and that people on both sides returning to their homes. I mean, building trust, first of all, starts with restoring the property rights. It's um, I think at least both sides should look very deeply into these issues and really think if this will help or disturb, or how we can reconcile also on this. How people can get back what belong to them, the properties, their houses, their homes, their individual rights should be restored on, I think, on both sides, and this is part of trust building, of returning trust that was lost on both sides. Okay, but let me then ask you, this is my last question. So you had here this meeting of steering committee of our project, because economic connectivity project between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It's now, we had 7th dialogue, and it's end of the year, so we're planning for 2024 the strategy. What do you think strategically? And everyone is expecting that the peace agreement will be signed soon. So if the peace agreement is signed, where do you think both governments of Armenia and Azerbaijan and civil societies, what are these 2-3 strategic areas, or maybe one, where you think that our society should focus more to bring forward, first of all, normalization, and hopefully at some later point also move towards reconciliation?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. That's a really important question, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity that you create for the local expert community, that we can come here and talk about the opportunities, especially economic opportunities. We represent the general peace building process, but in the room we had quite many people who are more knowledgeable on economic topics, and it was a pure pleasure to listen to them, and not only this time but in the previous events also. So in this context,
I'm sorry, we try also in the framework of this project bring in people like we had this time Christoph Bayer from former managing director of GIZ, a person who in Germany was one of the key persons who was defining how the development aid should go worldwide, but also in our region. So these connections also help to plan and design the future cooperation and partnership.
Absolutely. So that's why I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful for your efforts in this regard. And I believe that, look, whatever we prepared in the aftermath of the 2020 Karabakh War and the situation that we have now, it's different. So the situation changes on a weekly basis almost. So that's why these expert recommendations, certain, let's say, approaches, they need to be updated. And as a result of all of the developments, you have new opportunities emerging. So these new opportunities also should be used. So that is why the discussions that took place in the room, they were very important to understand each other's concern and understand whether we can move on together. So that is why these economic opportunities, they are going to play a quite important role in the reconciliation efforts. So reconciliation is not all about certain, let's say, just confidence building measures. It's also economic confidence building measures. And I believe that the ideas that we discussed for the last couple of days here, they worth being invested, they worth being considered, they worth being pushed forward. So in this context, I believe that as a result of this gathering and this kind of expert discussions, we are going to see that the governments are going to be equipped with much better, let's say, proposals to help the both societies to get closer to each other.
Ahmed, thank you very much for coming to our event and contributing to it intellectually. And also thank you for coming to our studio and giving us another interview. Thank you.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation.